Hereford in the early 20th century would have recognised the striking figure of Alfred Watkins, a local merchant, amateur archaeologist, inventor, photographer and naturalist. At the age of 65, whilst out across the familiar hills of his home county, a revelation unfolded before his eyes. A network of lines spreading out like glowing wires over the landscape, intersecting with churches, stone circles, mounds, earthworks and moats. In fact, all sorts of places of power or worship. These were what he would later call Leylines.
So these days we think of ley lines as somehow mystical or supernatural, but that was not the way that Alfred saw them. He saw straight tracks between different pathways of the sun and the stars, created by generations back to Neolithic times. I'm interested in generations of animals cutting their own pathways across our fragmented landscape. Let's go and look for some wildlife ley lines. So I'm quite literally at a crossroads here. We've got the official footpath here, which the humans use, and their dogs of course, and then we've got the wildlife footpath which crosses over it at the diagonal, heads down to some water down there and then back in that direction towards a hedgerow. Now, wildlife will use our footpaths. They're often seen using human footpaths, but when they need to get from one place to another easily, they create their own. So keep an eye out for these. So along roadways and lanes, if you keep an eye out on the hedgerows, you can sometimes find a very obvious track or trail. And here we have one going underneath this tree. And you can see very clearly that it goes all the way through here and the grass has been worn down and then it's onto the side of the field. And so the track comes down onto the side of the field and then there's a much longer track which just heads off towards the horizon. And would you believe it? While I'm looking at this pathway, some deer have arrived, and they're probably some of the animals that do use this quite regularly. They're a long way away from me, but I think they know I'm here. They're certainly keeping a close eye on things. They're running away. They've spotted me and they've had enough. So there they go. Off somewhere new. Just off the lane here we have what I can only describe as a deer motorway. There's a great big trail running down towards the stream and lots of bare soil where there should really be plants, and then over the other side just hundreds of footprints of deer that have been scrambling up the bank. And it really doesn't take a mammal detective to see all of that going on. Lots of animals use streams and brooks as places to drink and also use them as crossing points at shallow areas. So that is a really good sign that you've got animals moving across the countryside. Now, although this looks like a promising area to look for footprints, you can't always go everywhere that you want to. But we don't have to trespass to find something else down here. At the end of the trail is a hole that's been dug out by a badger, and this is a badger latrine or dung pit, and it actually puts its droppings down in there. They keep their areas for going to the toilet away from their homes. So here's a typical badger set. There's lots of sandy excavations, quite a large hole and lots of bedding. Badgers are very clean animals and they often will change their bedding that they take down to the set entrance. And we can see here that actually there is some vegetation growing across the entrance, so it might be that this isn't currently in use. One of the other features of badger sets is the trees that grow around them. Here we've got an old elder tree, and elders often grow around badger sets. They love the disturbed soil that the badgers excavate. So often when you've got a very big badger set with lots of different entrances, you'll find quite a bit of elder as well. But there's one wildlife ley line you will not find on the ground. So where is it? Well, let's take a closer look. So what am I trying to show you here? Well, it's not what's around me, but it's what's back there. And really, we need to take a wider look. It's a deer browse line. Look along this hedgerow. You'll see that the vegetation stops around about where my shoulder is, all the way along. And this is where the deer are literally just browsing off the vegetation. Remember, we've got fallow deer herds here. They're quite tall animals. They can reach these leaves, and they've just nipped off the ends of all of these little branches that are forming. Now you've seen it, you'll see it all over the place in our hedgerows and woodlands. So while animals will use our pathways and tracks, they're also creating a network of their own across the landscape. If you're out walking, why not look for some wildlife ley lines of your own? You may be surprised at how many you find.